Time is precious. Think about that for a moment. Time is an arbitrary force. It's one of the few things that we as humans, the most advanced species on this planet, still have absolutely no control of. No matter how much we may wish that we could get more or go back, the second hand continues to tick day in, day out, never stopping. Time and its unchangeable influence on life is the primary reason that we're here today. My name's Tyler Tripp, and I, along with my co-counsel, represent defendant Yerba Buena House. Yerba Buena, you see, helps people deal with this unavoidable passage of time. When our senior citizens reach a point in time where they need additional assistance in getting through their day-to-day life, senior living facilities like Yerba Buena are there to offer a helping hand. Maybe it's a widowed grandmother who just needs someone to talk to, and she feels more secure being in a community setting. Or maybe it's an elderly couple who just finds it easier to live in a place where a friendly helping hand is not far away. For these people who are at the most fragile times in their lives, Yerba Buena has provided assistance and peace of mind for not only the elderly residents living there, but for their families as well. Yerba Buena makes every effort to aid its residents during the time in their life when the clock just seems to be ticking too fast and the days seem to be a struggle. Unfortunately, Marie Fitzgerald was at this point when time just seemed to be ticking too fast. That is why her son, the plaintiff, chose to move her into Yerba Buena House in November of 1999. This was 5 years before she passed away at St. Teresa's Medical Center. Mrs. Fitzgerald came to Yerba Buena to make the most out of the time that she had left. The Yerba Buena staff had a chance to get to know Mrs. Fitzgerald. They knew her very well while she was there. The facility supervisor, Waldo Davis, as well as other staff, formed close personal relationships with her during her 5 years at Yerba Buena. Mr. Davis recounts how he spent time talking with Miss Fitzgerald and his continuous efforts to look after her best interests. Unfortunately, due to a combination of Miss Fitzgerald's fragile 71-year-old body, deficient medical care by St. Teresa's Medical Center, and that never-stopping, unforgiving thing that we have already discussed, time, Marie succumbed to sepsis in January of 2005 via respiratory failure. Marie admitted to St. Teresa's Hospital for treatment for a bed sore. After a procedure to treat the bed sore, Ms. Fitzgerald subsequently contracted the antibiotic-resistant infection MRSA during her 2 weeks of post-op recovery in the hospital. This infection was the cause of Ms. Fitzgerald's death. The plaintiff asserts that Yerba Buena is to blame for his mother's passing, that Yerba Buena is the cause or substantial factor in causing her death. This is just not the case. You're going to hear testimony from Joseph Fitzgerald telling you about his mother's stay at Yerba Buena. But you will not hear any statements from him regarding his concern with the level of assistance his mother was receiving at Yerba Buena prior to her passing. He will also tell you that he made arrangements for outside medical assistance for his mother from a third-party provider, not employed by Yerba Buena. You also hear testimony from Marianne Sharkey, a non-practicing physician for 10 years. She now works as in an administrative position as opposed to a healthcare provider position. She will give her opinion that Yerba Buena was not giving sufficient training. However, Dr. Sharkey cannot give a plain answer as to exactly how Yerba Buena is responsible for Miss Fitzgerald's death. You'll also hear from someone else who was very close to Miss Fitzgerald. Mr. Waldo Davis was the manager of Yerba Buena during Miss Fitzgerald's stay. Mr. Davis got to know Mrs. Fitzgerald very well. They talked often, as he would stop by her room to chat daily, to check in on her, make sure that she was getting tended to as she should. Mr. Davis understood his role as a facilitator for his residents, to provide them with the best chance to enjoy the time that they had with as little resistance and as much comfort as possible. This could be something as simple as sitting and chatting for a while, or something more involved, such as helping with day-to-day challenges of living. What you will not hear Mr. Davis discuss is his facility's provision of medical care to their residents. As Yerba Buena is not a medical care facility, Mr. Davis will explain that he knew every one of his residents on a very personal level, almost as if they were his extended family. He can tell you their likes and dislikes, as well as the things that each of them need on a daily basis to live comfortably at Yerba Buena. Finally, you'll hear from Dr. William Amparo. Dr. William Amparo is an experienced and licensed geriatric healthcare provider. Dr. Amparo will explain to you that a bed sore, such as the one that Miss Fitzgerald had, is something that is not out of the ordinary for someone of her age and situation. He will also explain to you that the infection that actually caused Miss Fitzgerald's death was not in any way the result of the actions of Yerba Buena, as there was no infection at the time that Miss Fitzgerald left the Yerba Buena facility. I told you time was one of the primary factors that needs to be considered here. First, remember that residents of Yerba Buena are at a point in life where time is slipping faster and faster from them. As much as we may wish for that clock to slow down, the reality is that we no longer have control over the passage of time and the effects that this passage of time can have on a 71-year-old body. Second, the time between Miss Fitzgerald's leaving Yerba Buena and the time of her death is 2 weeks. That was 14 days for infection to be contracted and become septic. There was no infection present during the time Miss Fitzgerald was in the care of Yerba Buena. There were 14 days that the hospital had to diagnose and treat this infection, but were unable to do so for some reason or another. After hearing all of the evidence, I'm confident that you will find Yerba Buena has zero liability for the death of Miss Fitzgerald. Yerba Buena did its job in providing services to her. She was given outside medical care throughout her stay as needed, and as soon as her bed sore reached a stage that necessitated inpatient medical attention, she was referred out to St. Teresa's for treatment. It is at St. Teresa's where the actual substantial cause of death occurred. It is in that environment, no matter how safe it may seem, that Miss Fitzgerald contracted the infection that ultimately led to her death. Miss Fitzgerald was free from infection when she left defendant Yerba Buena's facility. It was not until after she got treatment at the hospital and began her recovery that the substantial factor in her death took effect. There were 2 weeks of time to consider here. That's 14 days. 14 days is a lot of time for an infection to take hold. 14 days is also a lot of time for a fully equipped medical facility to diagnose and treat such an infection. But St. Teresa's failed to do so. And it is for this reason that Yerba Buena should not be held liable in this case. Thank you.